This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good night, Rabbi. So a very interesting Haftorah this week. The Haftorah of Parshas Terumah. From Sefer Malachim Aleph, where the Navi speaks about the Rebbeinu Shalom gave wisdom to Shlomo, and Shlomo made a pact between Hiram and Shlomo made a pact between him and Chiram. Hiram was the king of Tyre, and they made a covenant. And obviously, the connection to the Haftorah is that the Navi speaks about the building of the first Beis Mikdash, and the Parsha speaks about the building of the Mishkan. Now, most people think of Hiram as a really good guy. In fact, there is a secret society that much of the history of the United States is based on. It's called the Freemason Society. You know anything about the Freemason Society? Most presidents of the United States, or many presidents of the United States, were Freemasons. And basically it's not a religion, but it's a society where they believe in one God, and they believe in charity. And it's based on Hiram, who helped build the first temple. And they pattern themselves after Chiram. Many United States presidents were members of the Freemason Society. Okay, Chiram in the world is traditionally thought of as a good guy, and we're going to see he wasn't. Okay, but be it as it may, let's begin by analyzing this pasuk. God gave wisdom to Shlomo as he spoke to him. What does that mean, God gave wisdom to Shlomo as he spoke to him? It should say, God gave wisdom to Shlomo. And what does it mean? Vayehi shalayim bein Chiramu vein Shlomo vayechasu v'rish shnehem. So first of all, it should just say vayechasu v'rish. Shnehem is also extra. Obviously, if they made a covenant, it was them too. So, what does this mean? God gave wisdom to Shlomo as he spoke to him. So comes the Ben Ish Chai in the Sefer Birchas Chaim, and the Ben Ish Chai refers us to a pasuk in Malachim. We know that God gave Shlomo, he said, ask you for your heart's desire, I'll give you whatever you want. And Shlomo, he said, you could get wisdom, you could get money. And Shlomo asked for wisdom, and God said, I'll give you both. You know what that's analogous to? A king said to his friend, ask me anything and I'll give it to you. So the friend of the king was very smart. The guy said, if I ask to be a governor, he'll make me a governor. If I ask for money, he'll give me money. He said, King, I want to marry your daughter. He was very smart. By marrying his daughter, he'll get everything, right? So too Shlomo said, I could ask God for A, B, and C. I'll ask him for Chachma. If you have Chachma, you have everything. So the Navi tells us, ask, what should I give for you? Says the Ben Ish Chai, he quotes this Medrash Tanchuma, the Mashal, where somebody is given a possibility from the king to ask for something, and the guy asks for to wed the daughter of the king. And that is analogous to what Shlomo HaMelech asked for. But the truth is, says the Ben Ish Chai in the bottom line, in the Nimshal, that Hashem was mative to Shlomo, he was mative to him a lot more than when the king allowed his friend to marry his daughter. Now, listen to this. In what way was Hashem mative to Shlomo more than the king? Because Hashem actually was merames to Shlomo and hinted to Shlomo what Shlomo should ask for. Because al pi Kabbalah, the word chachma is a compound word. Kayach ma, the power of ma. Chachma is a compound word, the power of ma. So Hashem, meaning wisdom, is the power of ma. So Shlomo HaMelech, when Hashem says, Sha'al ma, God is saying, ask for ma. God is not just saying, Sha'al, and I'll give you. He's being meramis to him. Sha'al ma, ask for wisdom. He's telling him, Sha'al ma. That because wisdom is the compound word, Kayach ma. And Shlomo was margish this. Shlomo realized God was telling him this. So therefore, the Medrash says, by the way, the Medrash ends off, Amar Lei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Sha'al ma'etelach v'shalach chachma. That's Pshat, Hashem nasan chachma l'shloime kasher diber lai. God gave wisdom to Shlomo like God told him to. God was the one who told Shlomo that he should ask for wisdom. That's the remez over here. Hashem nasan chachma l'shloime kasher diber lai.
What is the point of asking? If you give me straight chachma, so don't ask. I'm giving you chachma.
What?
What is the point of asking?
You mean you should just give it to him? So you have chachmas al chakimin. You got to be smart to get it in the first place. So Shlomo was smart. He picked up on what he's supposed to ask for. But the Ben Ish Chai says an interesting thing. The word. Yeah. The Ben Ish Chai says the name Shlomo itself is a remez to this, because you could always put in the aleph Sha'al Ma, right? Sha'al Ma. Okay, interesting. So the Ben Ish Chai continues. We still need to answer a very important diktuk, and that is, what's the connection to the shalom that was between Shlomo and Hiram and the fact that he got chachma? Because it says like this. It says, Hashem nasan chachma l'Shlomo, and there was shalom between Hiram and between Shlomo. What does one thing got to do with the other? Because Hashem gave chachma to Shlomo, therefore there was shalom between Chiram and Shlomo. What does one thing have to do with the other?
Because you gave him chachma, you made shalom. You used the chachma.
What does the chachma have to do with making the shalom? Because he had chachma? Also, what does it mean? It says there was shalom beinehem. Really? There was shalom beinehem? We know that Shlomo was at peace with everybody. We know that's one of the reasons why Shlomo was allowed to build the Beis HaMikdash. The Malbim explains, why was Shlomo the one to build the Beis HaMikdash? Because since God promised that whoever builds the Beis HaMikdash is going to have respite from their enemies, and David HaMelech lived a very difficult life, so David couldn't build the Beis HaMikdash, because if he would have built it, it would have been with ulterior motives, to have respite from his enemies. But since Shlomo anyway had respite from his enemies, he was allowed to build the Beis HaMikdash. So Shlomo was at peace with everybody. What's the chiddush that he had peace between him and Hiram?
Hiram was a difficult case.
So must be Hiram was no easy character. So let's learn a little bit about who Hiram was. Everybody knows there's something called a bathroom. Yeah, a Beis HaKisei. In fact, some people spend a lot of time there. In fact, the Gemara says that Yitzchak, when God said he has to destroy the Jewish people, Yitzchak said, what's the big deal? Anyway, they only sin between 20 and 50. Half the time is night, so you're left with 25 years. And out of 25 years, half the time they're eating, davening, or in the Beis HaKisei. So you see from there that the Beis HaKisei is, Now, how does a person go to the Beis HaKisei? There are openings in the body, they're orifices. Why did God make these orifices? The answer is to put Chiram in his place. The only reason we go to the bathroom is because there was once upon a time a Baal Gaiva named Chiram. If there wouldn't have been a guy named Chiram, then we wouldn't have had to go to the Beis HaKisei. The Gemara in Bava Basra. Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu leChiram, Melech Tzor. B'cha nistakalti ubarasi nekavim ba'adam. I looked at you and I had to create holes to go to the bathroom. V'ika da'amri, hachi kamar, b'cha nistakalti, v'karnasni misa adam rishon. The reason why people die is because there was a guy named Hiram. So Hiram was a bad cat, as they say. In fact, there's a Gemara in Chulin. The Gemara says like this: Lo ymeru b'chem mikol ha'amim, chashak Hashem b'chem. Amar lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. God says to Israel, you know why I desire you? Because when I give you Gedula, you lower yourself. I gave Gedula to Abraham. What did Abraham say? V'anoichi afar v'ofer. I gave Gedula to Moshe and Aaron. What did Moshe and Aaron say? V'nachnu ma. I gave Gedula to David. What did David say? V'anoichi toilas v'layish. But Goyim, I give them Gedula. Nimrod says, let's go build a tower. Paroi mi Hashem. Sancherev mi v'chol aleheo haratzos. Nebuchadnezzar ele abama sayav. Chiram moishav elokim yashavti b'lev yamim. I sit like a god in the sea. So Hiram thought he was God. Hiram was a bad cat. In fact, the Medrash Tanchuma says, look at number 10. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, Paroi made himself a god. Go tell him you're nothing. I'm going to make you God over him. Paroi said, Li ya'ori v'ani asasini. Therefore, the Gemara says, Paro was one of the 4 people who thought they were a god, and then someone cohabited with them like they would be a woman, the Medrash says. Okay, whatever that means, but the Gemara says one of those 4 people who thought they were a god was Chiram. Then there's a Medrash Tanchuma. Chiram built a palace for himself between the Adaryaos, the Adriatic Sea, and the Atlantic Ocean. So now we're going to learn about who Hiram thought he was. It's an interesting Yalkut Shemaini. It's actually an amazing Yalkut Shemaini.
Wasn't Tyre on the Mediterranean? That'd be amazing.
The what?
He was in...
Tyre was on the Mediterranean, yeah.
Isn't that where Hiram was?
Yes, but apparently he made himself a palace between the Adriatic and the Atlantic.
Yeah, it's a geography problem. He knows he's not. He said he is, right? But Parashah said...
Yeah, they thought they were.
They thought they were.
They deluded themselves.
What he built, he thought he was.
George Bernard Shaw said, when it comes to self-delusion, every man is a genius. Right? People delude themselves. The Stipler said the most common problem today is that almost every Jew thinks they're the Gadol Hadar. Okay.
Something else.
No.
Something else thinking you're...
Gaiva makes a person think.
Okay.
They're like, they're divine, they're God. Look at the Medrash. The Medrash says, Chiram melech tsar hayageya umezga ad moed. Chiram was a big shot. Number 12. Ma'asa. Nichnas liyam. He went into the sea. Va'asa loya arba'a ma'amudim shel barzel. He made 4 pillars of iron, merubaim, square arukim, shiuram, shaveh, v'amidim zeh k'neged zeh. Va'asa shiva rakiyim. He made 7 heavens. The kiseh. He made a throne of glory. The chayos, re'imim, v'zikim, u'brakim. Basically, what God did upstairs, He made another one. Wow. Harakia Rishon, He made out of glass, 500 amos by 500 amos. He made a sun, a moon, and stars. In the second Rakia, He made out of iron, 1,000 amos by 1,000 amos with a pool of water. A Rakia. A third one of iron, 1,500 amos and 1,500 amos with water, and avanim megulgalos asa b'rakir shel barzel, and they would crackle like thunder. The fourth one He made out of lead, 2,000 amos by 2,000 amos, with water in between. The fifth one out of copper, 2,500 amos by 2,500 amos. The sixth one, 3,000 amos by 3,000 amos. The seventh one, 3,500 amos by 3,500 amos. He made avonim toivus margolios, amma by amma.
He was deluded, but he was an engineer, a genius.
Mikan nasim barakim and mikan nasim zikim. He made thunder, lightning, and his universe would shudder. So God goes to Yechezkel. True story, by the way. Amar lechiram el sarmata masgayu larisha. What are you getting so worked up? Relax, pal. You're flesh and blood. Amar lefanu yibon Yechezkel. Hey, chani hoylech etzlev. How am I going to get up there? How am I going to get up to his heaven? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought us wind that blew up Yechezkel by the curl of his hair, and he flew up to Chiram. So Chiram is sitting up there high and mighty in his palace. He thought nobody could ever get up there. Kivan shara Chiram lichezkel nivav and his day. How'd you get here? God told me to tell you that you're a nothing. I'm not a I'm a God, I live forever. God, I'm a competitor to God. Just like God lives in the sea. All the other kings, they're dead, I'm alive. There are 50 kings from the Jewish people, 25 based off, 25 Machis, 50 Nevi'im, 10 Kohanim Gedolim, Kavarti Kulam. I outlived all of them and I'm still around. Amar la Yechezkel. There are bigger people than you and they did nothing. You know what Hiram is like? Hiram is like an Eved who they made a cloak to his master. There was a servant who made a special garment for his master. Whenever the master was wearing it, the Eved saw it and he felt haughty. So the Adon said, I'm going to rip the garment and the Eved won't be misgoah. So to Chiram. Chiram, he sent wood to the Beis HaMikdash. But he figured, God made his house out of my stuff. So Hiram was misgoah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I'm going to just destroy the temple just to put Hiram in his place. You hear this? That's the pshat. Pasach levano in dilasecha v'atoichal ish ba'arazecha. What was the end of Hiram? Hashem brought Nebuchadnezzar on him. And Nebuchadnezzar lived with Hiram's mother in front of him and took him off the throne and cut off his flesh about 2 fingers worth every day. He dipped it in vinegar and he fed it to Hiram until Hiram died. So every day Nebuchadnezzar took a little knife, cut off a little piece of Hiram, fed it to Hiram, but he gave him some ketchup. He put it in ketchup and vinegar. And what happened to Hiram's palace? Hashem destroyed the earth, ripped up the earth, and he buried it for the tzaddikim la'asalavai. So if you want to get some good reward, do a mitzvah, and God will put you in Hiram's palace. Okay. So the Ben Ish Chai quotes this, and he says, where did Hiram get this ability from? How did he get it? He made Shiva Rakiyim, he made himself a god. The answer is he must be connected to the very root of the Sitra Achra. Therefore he's called Chiram. Chiram, Yud. Yud, the Sitra Achra is called Chiram. Like it says, Shaketz to Shaksenu v'savet to Savenu ki Chiramu. That's why it says, V'lo yidbak b'yad chamuma minha Chiram. And therefore he's the king of Tzur. Tzur is the Avi Avois HaTumah. How do we know? Because the Gemara says in Megillah that Tzur was only built from the Churban of Yerushalayim. Tzur is Keneged Yerushalayim. Therefore, the Medrash says, Hiram was very haughty. And there's a concept of Kabbalah that Gaiva is in the 3 Rishonos. Whatever that means. And therefore, since God gave wisdom to Shlomo, Mitzad Chachma Kedusha, Hiram was Mitzad the Tumah. Still, here's the Chiddush. Even though Shlomo was such a Chacham, and therefore Hiram was the opposite of him, and he was the epitome of evil, still there was peace between the two of them. Okay, let's explore this a little bit more. Elal. So, let's explore this a little bit more. In Sefer what does it mean there was a bris between Shlomo and Hiram? Shnehem. Obviously Shnehem. And as we mentioned, Shlomo was at peace with everyone, like the Navi says, Ki shalom yeh b'yamav. It's a very interesting thing. If you look in Sefer Malachim, in Parak Tas, Pasuk Yud Beis Yud Gimel, it says over there that Hiram went out to see all the cities that Shlomo gave him, and he didn't like it. And he said, brother, Achi. Hiram calls Shlomo his brother. Why does Hiram call Shlomo his brother? And what are all these cities that Shlomo gave Hiram? And now we're going to learn that they had a very interesting pact. Shlomo actually gave up land in the Galil, and he gave it to Hiram, and Hiram gave up land in Sur, and he gave it to Shlomo. That was a representative of the great pact that they had among them. A pact is most symbolized when you give up something of yourself to somebody else. So Shlomo actually gave up from Israel, and Hiram gave up from Tzur. Why is Hiram referring to Shlomo as Achi? And the Birchas Chaim of the Ben Ish Chai says, we find the Chachamim are nirgash bazeh, and they say that when times are going well for us, Ummah Ha'olam like to consider us like brothers. Look at number 17. In Divrei Hayamim it says, V'ha'arim asher nasan Churam l'shloimoi, and Churam is another name for Hiram. The cities that Hiram gave Shlomo built them. Look in the Radak. The Radak says, V'sefer Malachim oimer Shlomo nasan l'Hiram esramir be'eretz HaGalil. In Malachim it says Shlomo gave Chiram 20 cities. So in Malachim it talks about the cities Shlomo gave Chiram. Here it talks about the cities that Chiram gave Shlomo. Yitachin lefarsh ki nasan Chiram l'Shlomo orim ba'artzai v'hashiv sham bnei Yisrael k'dei l'schazik behem. And Shlomo gave Chiram cities in the Galil. This is to be mechazik the bris b'neihem. In other words, they had a very interesting pact that they each gave the other from within their land. So if you look at number 19, the Ben Ish Chai quotes what it says in Divrei Hayamim, that Hiram gave cities to Shlomo in the Galil. Like it says in the pasuk we just read. And in Malachim here it says Shlomo gave Hiram cities in the over here. And this was the bris ahava that they had. So this was not a one-sided bris. Each party gave the other from their land. Each one gave a chela kenegdai to show the great ava chazaka, to show that they have an unbreakable bond. So Enze Ben Ish Chai, this is why they called each other brother, Achi, to show the great Ava and that there's no pirud. And this was the chidush of the Shalom. Yes, Shlomo had respite from all the enemies, but the bris Shalom Beinayim was the davar chidush, that they actually gave up each one from the other's portion to show this great connection. But since Shlomo was Misitra de Kedusha and Hiram was Misitra de Klipa, it says that the pact was Shalom Chasar Vav, that it was not whole. Okay, Rabbi say the Haftorah continues, and it talks about all the men that Shlomo commissioned to build the Beis HaMikdash. Look at number 20. So Shlomo HaMelech went up, and he took taxes. He took 30,000 people, and he sent them to Lebanon. 10,000 in different months, a month in Lebanon, 2 months at home, and Adoniram was in charge of the tax. Basically, those were 30,000 guys, and Shlomo took 70,000 carriers and 80,000 ewers, besides the officers, 3,300. So a total of over 180,000 people. Marv Rabbi say, if you're building a building, you don't need 180,000 people. I don't even know if you need 1,000 people. Why does Shlomo need so many people? I just had the schus in Eretz Yisrael. I visited Rav Gamliel Rabinovich, who put out a sefer on the Haftorah, Tiv HaHaftorah. And he actually, at the end of every Haftorah, makes a list of all the limudim you can learn from the Haftorah. In this week's Haftorah, he writes you can learn 27 limudim from the Haftorah. So let's learn one or two, yeah? What? I showed him the softcover version of the Sefer, and he posed with it and he took a picture. He was very kind. Okay, he contrasts the building of the Mikdash to the building of the Mishkan. The building of the Mishkan, how many people were needed? Nobody. They didn't need any good. They didn't even need a few good men. Moshe, Betzalel, nobody was needed. They needed money, gold, silver, copper, you know. When it comes to the building of the Mikdash, all of a sudden we need people. They didn't just give their money, they gave their lives. They gave their time. So Gamliel says it could be that, as in contrast to when they built the Mishkan, here when they built the Mikdash, they need kayach gufam. And it could be the difference is that the Mishkan was only temporarily. Therefore it was enough just to give their money. But here where they needed to build a bayis kavua to Hashem, they needed more than money, they needed their life and their time and their talents. So from here we learn that if to build a Mishkan and a Mikdash of sticks and stones, Klal Yisrael left their house for 30 days and they gave their life for it, to make oneself be worthy to be a Mishkan of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, alachas kama v'kana. Sometimes a person has to leave their house and go to a Beis HaMedrash for a long time, and to dedicate themselves, to be able to make themselves worthy for Hashras HaShechina. Because if Klal Yisrael to build a Mikdash of Avonim, they needed to give up 30 days. How much effort and time do we have to give up? But says Rabbi Gamliel, how many people were needed? Look in the last column. 2 lines before that. Sach hapoyelim shalakach shloimai hayakarav l'shlish meklal Yisrael. Shlomo took about 1/3 of the Jewish people to build the Beis HaMikdash. Says Gamliel, if you make a calculation, how many people Shlomo used? 30,000 woodcutters, 70,000 carriers, 80,000 ewers. This is about 1/3 of the population. Why is the Navi telling me this? Perhaps Shlomo is trying to teach us that a person should spend at least 1/3 of their life in Avodas Hashem. Just like Shlomo did. So for example, if you're up for, let's say you have in 24 hours, you should try to spend at least 8 hours a day in Avodas Hashem. So somebody told me, I do. I sleep 8 hours a night. I spend 8 hours in Avodas Hashem. No, that's not what we're talking about. Tyre, Tefillah, Chesed, Tzedakah. This way you have 16 hours to do whatever you want. The Shach writes in his time, in the name of the Drisha, that in his times, the Balabatim were only learning 3 to 4 hours a day. Halavai, the Gdolim, Halavai, we should be on the Madrega of the Balabatim of a few hundred years ago. But says Rabbi Gamliel, it's not for nothing that the Torah is telling us how many people are being dedicated to the Mikdash, almost 1/3 of the population of Klal Yisrael, to see how much of a person's abilities and koychos and time should be dedicated to Avodas Hashem. The Hashem should give us koyach and chizuk. Lasos ritzayne v'lev of shalom. Shkoyach, everyone.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.